timing is really critical in pub battles. I wanted to give you guys a few examples of some of the basics here on this. So let's say we're lined up to fight. Let's say I want to take this position. So if I attack like this, isn't that vulnerable? I mean, the enemy could just move in next and flank me on both sides, right? That would definitely be bad. So how, if we don't want that to happen when we attack, how can we prevent it? A lot of this really comes down to the timing. Is this a bad move? Is that a bad attack? In pub battles, it depends. Depends on the timing, really. If we know all the colonials here have moved already and we know that we're moving last, that's okay. That's a perfectly good attack. If we're moving first, then yeah, this could be a disaster, because when the colonials move next, they can just flank our attack. Probably not a good idea unless we've got another command here somewhere that hasn't moved yet. So maybe this half moves first, this half hasn't moved yet. So if this half of our forces move, Abercrombie attacks, then the colonials move, then the right side here of our forces move, that gives us a chance to hit, to flank the flanker. That could actually work out for us. Now, what if we have to attack first? What are our options? Well, one thing you could do is just attack with everybody. If everybody moves forward together, that kind of covers our flanks. But that might also generate a lot more casualties than we want. Do we really want to attack all the positions all up and down the line at once and take a beating? Sometimes you only want to concentrate on one point. So here's another way to approach that problem. Maybe we put 2 on the center point. That's the point we want to take. We don't want to attack the rest. Maybe we're weak here. So we can actually, if we're careful, we can usually put a couple pieces to protect our flanks. So we're moving first with the British, focusing on a point and covering our flanks for a counterattack. Now how should the enemy respond to this? If, let's say you're the colonials and this is what happens to you now. Now what? Well, if you've got other pieces, you can bring up support. If you're moving, we're assuming the colonials are moving second here. You could rush forward and actually you could just stay here. Just let that ride. Hold your positions. If you're feeling more aggressive, you could attack and try to push the British here. Another thing, if you're not feeling that strong, you could just pull back. Give up ground. You don't have to, maybe you don't have to fight. You've got room to fall back. You can see that it helps to have people in reserve. So where's the attack going to hit? The British could do this. They could also do that. This is where it's nice to have a reserve force. So if the British move first, you can wait and see exactly where they're going to strike, and then you can commit reserves to help bolster that defense. Notice you can only do this as the colonials, if you're moving second. So the British attack, colonials move second, they can adjust to the attacks. So is it better to move first or last in pub battles? It really depends. Depends on the situation, what you're trying to do. In this situation, the colonials would want to move second so they could react. if they're expecting an attack. Let's say they are expecting an attack and most of their line is spent. Not good. In this case, who wants to go first? The Colonials want to go first. If they've got baggage here, if the British can go first now, they can strike while the Colonials are weak. That could get ugly. So in this case, the Colonial, assuming they've got baggage here in range, if the Colonials can go first, they can actually rally their troops before the British go second. Now they got to fight into a fresh defense here. So there's a lot of, there's pros and cons both ways. There's a lot of trade-offs to consider. So this is a good example of how it depends. What are you trying to do? What's the situation? It's also important to try to get the attacker to go first if you're fighting a delaying action. So maybe we have no intention of fighting here at all. We actually want to, or defending here, we actually want to defend further back. We still want the British to go first. If the British go first, this limits how far they can go. Then we could actually drop back and defend maybe on our real line of defense. If we move second, we can just pull back. Maybe that's where we want to be. So we've slowed down the British advance. Whereas if we had moved first and we just pull back, we have a lot of rough terrain to go through here, but potentially, if this was more clear, potentially the enemy might be able to advance further and we just lost a whole turn's worth of fighting. And now maybe our back's already up against the wall here. Things can get a little squirrely when you only have a couple blocks. With just one-on-one, it's pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot you can do there. Well, maybe that may not be true necessarily, depending on how you're positioned. If the British can go second, they might be able to maneuver here to hit the Colonials in their flank. So the combat would actually start like that. Whereas if the British go first, they could start off hitting the Colonials in their flank, but if they move second, they can just turn and square off to defend. Now with 2-on-1, it gets a lot more problematic. If the British go first, they might be able to attack like that. If the Colonials moved first, there's nothing they can do. They're going to have to fight at least one round of combat before they book. If they move second, they can disengage and run away. That's okay in pub battles, you can do that. Should you stay in a fight like this? You might be able to. The Colonials are actually up on a hill, so they've got cover. A frontal assault up a hill isn't a very good fight. Colonials should win that, all else being equal. Being flanked, the flank attack is coming up a hill too. That's still bad, but you know what? Maybe these British are starting off spent. That's an elite. Let's say they're not an elite. Is that an okay combat? Yeah, I think as the Colonials, I think I might try to stay there. I think I might be able to win that. What if we had reserve piece, and let's say the Colonials move second and they're actually able to get a second piece into this fight here somehow. And heck, let's make these fresh. What's the better move here? Is it better to move up and support that defense? Or is it better to counterattack and hit the British in this flank? I kind of like moving up into the center. Yeah, we're being flanked, but we have the advantage of the hill. 2-on-2. If we can defeat this flanker, maybe we lose a guy doing it, but now it's just a straight up fight. Whereas if we hit the flank, odds are we'll kill that guy. But then we won't be able to use him to help fight this battle for the hill. Alright, so I hope this gives you a good feeling for some of the tactics of maneuvering in pub battles and managing your timing in the turns. There's no set memorized rules that you follow, like always do this or always do that. Well, in pub battles it really depends. It depends on the timing, depends on the situation. Anything potentially could be a good move. Depends on what you're trying to do. Even bad things, like maybe we're starting an attack like this. Who's going to win this? I don't know. It could go either way, but with the Colonials starting off fresh, they could very easily lose both those blocks. Are you willing to lose 2 blocks for that hill? I don't know. How important is that hill in the battle right now? It may be. There may be times when you're willing to risk that. How many casualties have you already taken? Where exactly is your baggage? How close are you to losing? Sometimes you may just want to run away and not risk further casualties. Other times it might make sense to stand and slug it out there, and you've got to hold that hill. So I hope you can see there's a lot of really deep tactical nuance and strategy and pub battles. It's actually a very sophisticated system. Let us know some of the maneuvers and tactics you're using in your battles.